recording there. So I'll just be a minute or so. I'm looking for something to talk about.
Wait, what is Ryan doing here? Go away.
Alright, so there I think we're just a little bit inefficient on our on our flank there. So first off, when we backed away, instead of blinking back towards cover, we just blinked straight backwards. And then once we got out, we kind of sat there instead of backing up to our team and requesting healing fast. So that may just overall just meant we were out of the fight longer, and then that put us at a disadvantage there. I'm getting audio problems.
Any better now, or?
Yep, it improved. Okay, good decision to go high. Wait for your team to group up more and create space for you, because if you're going in at the very beginning of the fight before the fight's even begun, everyone's going to have resources, everyone's going to be able to look at you. On top of that, we stayed in there too long after we threw a pulse bomb, recalled like almost immediately, and then also we'll maybe talk about pulse bomb usage a little bit later, but just there we just threw pulse bomb from way too far away. So just a couple things to go in. Mainly just wait for your team and don't engage without them or before the fight's begun.
Oh, okay.
There, Zarya just got trapped. Probably be a perfect opportunity to drop on her and headshot her while she's trapped like that. Okay, unnecessary recall as it didn't actually recall any health or anything.
Yeah, that's true. I was hoping to get back on the high ground, but it was too late.
Yeah. Alright. So far, I'd probably say one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is that we need to work on actions for a minute, which we'll talk about mainly after this game, but just for now, quick, non-in-depth is we just sit outside of two fights too long. We're not doing enough as we should be. So I make sure that you're just spamming more, doing more things. There, if you see a grab that's happening, focus the people in the grab. So far we've seen a couple instances, like we saw the trap and the grab. Focus people who you can headshot super easily, right? So like if you can headshot somebody who's trapped, go for the headshots. If someone's grabbed, why would we focus someone else when they're just they're not able to move, they're not able to get away from you.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Well, but what about that pulse bomb? Or do you think I should have just killed him without it?
No, I think so in that situation, I think going for the pulse bomb was okay, though like you said, maybe we could have finished him off without the pulse bomb in that instance, especially if he's isolated. Though, I mean, I don't see a problem with that pulse because we just get him out of the way and then we can go and do other things. massive pulse. Alright, so far doing pretty good. I think we're gonna talk on a couple. Yeah, I'm just accumulating a couple things we'll talk about after we're done here.
Okay.
Why would we disengage from that fight on May when we're?
Oh, fuck me.
Yeah, we fell off.
Because he was healing up, so I thought I'd have to go help my team.
Yeah, so in that instance, you probably stay on her as is she just used the only ability that can get away from you, and she's gonna come out of that without her ability. You have more abilities than she does. So ultimately, like in that instance, we had an advantage over her, and then we kind of disengaged while we were winning that duel, basically.
Winston high ground.
All right. So yeah, just a couple things we'll talk about when we're out of here. Why don't we talk? As of the moment, it seems like we kind of blur the lines between when fights begin and end, as we kind of seem to be like sometimes, for example, like when fights will end, we'll just like run into their spawn, right? Which usually isn't something that we're gonna want to do. A lot of the times, you're gonna want to let them come in a little bit further. So we'll talk on positioning in that sense. But then at the same time, also just kind of acknowledging sometimes like we don't want to be like running in really far without our team with us. So make sure we're not going in really aggressively when we don't have teammates to back us up and when the fight's not happening. Besides that, there's a lot of things we'll just discuss after we're out of the game here, just because it's going to take too long to discuss in game and because we want visuals along with it as well.
Fair enough.
Though so far ability usage has seemed decent. Watch, just with a couple of just wasted abilities, make sure that we're, like, for example, if we're going to recall, make sure we're not, like, blinking and then recalling immediately, just because then that just wastes the blink you just used. And then sometimes we've recalled without needing to and just wasted blinks in general. So, not perfect, but still things to work on while also still doing decent on it.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the right way here as a tracer? Taking the right.
Probably say there's not a big need to when you could like come from the high ground, for example. Here we're gonna discuss a lot of high ground usage.
Torb. I have a severe hatred for Torbs.
So there, the play probably, and we'll discuss positioning, but the play to make probably would have been to just blink across to the other high ground right above them.
Oh, I thought I would have dodged that one.
Massive.
He took a dive.
What hertz monitor do you have?
144.
Okay, and you're running the game at 70 FPS?
Oh, I locked it, I see.
Yes.
I must have locked it
Yeah,
somewhere.
so we'll take a look at your options after this game is done. Just look at some of your settings because it doesn't seem as though it's very super optimized. So we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I play on a lot higher FPS in Valorant and Counter-Strike, so...
Yeah. Very nice. I like the melee kill there. Alright.
Ah, shit.
Pulse happened pretty late into that fight, and then also wanting to make sure that when we're going in for the pulse, that first off we're just getting away from where we pulse, and then we're also pulsing when Torb is bubbled. At the start of that fight, we kind of sat really far away when we probably wanted to get closer so we actually shoot at things. So let's talk about a bunch of things. So first off, let's just talk about your settings optimization. So do you want to just leave and then stream real quick on the... Yeah, or just show me your video settings.
Yeah, one sec, I'll leave the game.
Yep. So don't hop into a queue quite yet. So just go into options, take a look at the settings there.
There we go.
Yeah. So first off, so you have it locked. The resolution you have at 120. So you say you have 144 hertz. Yeah. So if you go to resolution at the very top of your screen,
Yeah.
you'll see that you have that at 120. So if you just change that to 144, yeah, there you go, and then you click apply. Then besides that, you probably, let me just take a look at some of my options here, see what we have. Okay, so you go on that. Then graphics quality, you have that all the way low. Frame rate cap is at 240. Probably do bring that frame rate cap down to 140 if because you don't need to go any higher than what your, or sorry, 150. Sorry, because you don't want to go realistically any higher than your hertz cap. Mind looking at your, so you also have your brightness higher. So that, for example, is why your screen might be very bright. And also I was noticing that the sun was like just extra bright on your screen. So just keep that in mind because you have your brightness up a little high. Don't know if that was on purpose or not.
I think it was, but I'm not sure for why or
Yeah.
when.
Do you mind going into the advanced on the graphics quality?
Yes.
Yep.
There we go.
So, okay, so here we have the graphics quality on low, but then we have everything on ultra, right? So
Yep.
this is going to be the reason in which we're not able to run at 144 hertz. Is
Yep.
because everything here is on all the way ultra. So if you're wanting to go, which I would recommend, especially if you're being competitive with the game, because better frames are going to mean that you're not going to be lagging as much, as it makes everything smoother. So I would probably recommend texture quality. That one you can leave up a little bit. Render scale, I'd probably say have that. That one is, those two are like, if you want things to look nice, go ahead. But then pretty much everything else I'd lower. Just go to the maximum
Times
low
one?
on them. Yeah, just maximum low, right? Just on like pretty much all of these. Model detail, yeah. Yep. So pretty much all these, you just go to to
Off or low?
Off. Pretty much all, you go to the maximum possible on the low end. And then local reflections and ambient occultation off. You just click both of those off, and then damage FX, I'm actually not too sure. I guess you can just leave that to default. What is the other option besides default? I think that's a new one that they added. All right, you just leave it on default. I don't know what that does, but
Nope.
yeah, okay. So then you can apply all that. You might need to
Yeah, I need to restart.
yeah, restart. Go ahead and restart, and then that should hopefully allow you to be running at not 60 FPS now, if you're working on it. All right.
Yes.
So then I am going to stream if you'd like to take a look while you're getting back into your game. And we're going to go a bunch of different things.
Okay.
So on Tracer, first off, just let's talk about just general positioning. So if we are to stand right here, and the enemy team is standing there, and they're all shooting at us, all looking at us, it takes us, right? Let's say we run out of blinks, or even if we're blinking, right? It's going to take us 2 seconds to get behind cover, or maybe if 0 blinks, it'd take us 3 seconds, right? And of course, we also don't want to have to use blinks if possible, right? But in that time, ultimately, we ended up dying during that time, right? Because you're out in the open. Whereas if we're standing right here, well now, right, we can do this in half a second. We can go like this, and now, you can't shoot through solid objects, so now we're safe. And it takes us 6 seconds, or 6 times slower, because it's half a second in comparison to 3 seconds, right? So therefore, good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover, right? Whereas a lot of times we'll just kind of walk out in the open without cover, making sure we're using cover. So just there's lots of different types of cover. You have slopes, you have pillars, right? In between shots, when you're reloading, when you're low health, when you're just ducking behind the corner to dodge stuff. You have corners, you have objects that are sitting around, random objects like the payload, for example. Right? You have pillar, corner, doorway, corner, right? And then if we come up to a high ground here, and on top of that, all of high grounds act as natural cover as well, right? They can see us, now they can't. They can see us, we crouch, now they can't, right? So all of high ground acts as natural cover. On top of this, most characters in the game can't reach you on high ground, right? Like 2/3 of the characters can't get to you without using the stairway, and then the other third that can need to use abilities, in which case now they're out of abilities, and then that adds an additional layer of survivability. Right? On top of this, high grounds give you a very, very good visibility. Right? You're able to see a lot of things from here, right? So we can see over here, we can see over here, we can see over here and over here and over there, right? Whereas if we're on the low ground, right, we can't really see over there, not over there too well, nothing over there, and we can't see any of the high ground, right? So high ground gives us a ton of visibility, right? So that's just all general positioning. Take high grounds much more often, I'd probably say. Make sure we're rotating to the best positioning in between fights, and making sure that like in between fights where we have like a good 20 seconds in between fights, so we want to be like just retaking high ground and whatnot when they're an option. Make sure we're not dropping randomly from them if possible. Moving on to some other topics, let's talk about the difference between off-angling and flanking. So basically, right, they both have the similar concept, right? So this is the enemy team, this is our team, right? This is the main angle, right? If we were to off-angle, that would just be us walking over here real quick. Right? It's very, very fast, very safe, and we get around the shields and around the tanks and get straight to their backline who we want to be shooting at, right? Whereas same thing over here, right? Enemy team, our team, main angle, right? We just take a couple seconds, wrap around up here. Now we've just gotten around the tanks, around the shields, and straight into their backline, right? From being on the high ground here, and it's also very, very safe, very fast, right? All of high grounds act as off angles as long as it's above them. If it's all the way over there, it doesn't really do anything though, right? Now a flank would be if we decided to do this, where we're shooting at them and then we go all the way around, and all the way around, and all the way around, and all the way around. So now flanks are long and or dangerous. Typically, you're not going to want to go for flanks in the middle of fights, as that means that during that time while you're on the flank, your team is you're not participating, and your team's going to be at a disadvantage, and they could be losing the fight. But you can go for them in between fights, and you also want to manage the danger level because some of them are going to be more dangerous than others. So ultimately, off angles is an almost always yes. If you have the off angle, you go for it because they're fantastic, and they basically both do the exact same thing. And then flanks, if the situation calls for it, then you can go for the flanks, right? So taking high grounds more often, making sure that we're not like going behind them in the middle of fights, and we're not always going behind them. Like, so for example, like there was that one time where we went behind them and pulsed the Hanzo. During that time, I'm thinking in my head, why did we need to go into their spawn when we could have just sat on the high ground and dropped on top of the Hanzo with a pulse bomb, right? That would have been, it would have meant that you're not really in danger. It would have given you better positioning. You could have just recalled back to the high ground, and it would have meant that you weren't out in the open at all. So it just ultimately would have just been better positioning wise. So all that makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so let's see. Moving on, pulse bomb. A lot of times I notice that we're chucking pulse bomb, right? We're just kind of we'll be like standing here and we'll like throw it up in the air and like and try to hit people with it, right? Most of the time you're gonna want to be like right on top of people while you're pulsing. You want to be right here because this is a very hard shot to hit when it's a very slow projectile and they're able to dodge it or block it or blink out of it or whatever, and they're able to do a lot of things to stop it. And it also could just miss because it's a slow projectile. But when right here, it's almost difficult to miss. Like, how are we going to miss this unless we like completely look in that direction, right? So you want to be throwing a pulse bomb when you're right next to somebody, and that means that we want to be getting up right next to people. We did good with that when we were on the Hanzo, when we kind of snuck up right behind him and then like just like plopped in on him. But then like every other time we place a pulse, we would like always chuck it, right? So we want to make sure we're throwing more of our pulses from a close range.
Let's try that again.
And then are you familiar with blink pulses at all?
Yeah, I am. That's why I was practicing my blink distance a lot.
Yep. So that's another thing you can try to go for, which we did go for, but like we'd always end up like we wouldn't mess up the blink distance where we'd like blink in and then we'd like be like right here when we threw it or something like that sort. Right. So
Yeah.
so we just want to get the blink distances down better, make sure we're on top of people a little bit more. Let's think through what were some other ones. Let me take a sip of water real quick too.
I also had one more question. Is
Go ahead.
the position I kept taking, the one behind the couch, right after the bridge?
Mm-hmm.
What about that position? Like, it's not too far away, it's not too far pushed up, but it's still like a heavy flank instead of an off angle.
Why not take the high ground? Right, when high ground's going to give you, when high ground's right next to it, when high ground's going to give you visibility, when it's going to give you survivability, when you're going to be able to, even if you don't want to hard engage, you can just poke from up on the high ground very safely, and, you know, just a bunch of other benefits, right, that come
Yeah,
along
it
with it
probably
being
would
off
on
angle.
most other heroes, but on Tracer I somehow never take the high ground
Yep.
because I'd see him more as a closer range hero, I guess.
Yeah, she is a close range here, but you know, a lot of times when people are below you, you can take higher. So Tracer like likes to stick within this distance because this is once she gets past like her preferred range is 10 meters, right? But when somebody's like right below you on a high ground, that range is still going to be 10 meters. So like when somebody's like right here, that's still our preferred range, right? Now, if we're on a high ground and they're all the way over there, now of course you shouldn't be on it, but then we can also just come over here and then boom, we're good. Now we're within our preferred range, right? We can, and we can even drop from high grounds, right? Like so, on Tracer we have the ability to just drop from a high ground and do something like this, right? And then like immediately recall and be back up, right? Is a bunch of different things to keep in mind with high grounds, right? So not every high ground you're gonna want to be on, but definitely like that high ground that's like right above where on second point that's right above where they're gonna be walking in from. Probably should be a place to be taking, right?
Okay.
So that kind of answered the question.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so moving on, let's talk about Tracer as an opportunist. So Tracer is an opportunist character, right? So what that means is that this applies to most characters, but especially so on Tracer, right? Where on Tracer, our playstyle is that we poke and we poke and we poke and we poke and we poke until we see an opportunity. So when we see somebody who is low, somebody is isolated or out of position, we have pulse bomb where we can one shot somebody with it. Let's say we are poking and we make somebody low, then we can go in and hard engage and get on top of somebody. And whereas every other time we're soft engaging, but we're just kind of poking, right? We're just kind of in there to do damage and distract, right? So that's how Tracer as a character operates. Whereas I probably say that we were either 0 or we're 100, right? We would either just be sitting out of the fight and not doing anything, which we'll talk about in a moment here when we talk about a different topic, but we would either just kind of not do anything at all, or we would be going in immediately and hard aggressing in on top of people, right? Where we would go in, get on top of them, and attempt to get a kill, right? Which is not how Tracer wants to operate because she's not a very heavy hitting character. She's not a character who does a ton of burst damage. If you were to compare her to like McCree, for example, who can like 2-tap somebody, right? Tracer's not going to be able to do that as efficiently. So, but what Tracer is very good at is her mobility and survivability, which means that, and her ability to be on off angles and whatnot, which means that she excels on finishing off kills, right? So if we have somebody who, for example, like, you know, is off on their own, like this guy up here, we can hard engage and duel this person. Or if we see somebody in there who's like 1 HP, we can like blinking, get super aggressive and just finish off the person who's 1 HP. Or if we have pulse bomb, we can go in aggressive and use pulse bomb. And I missed it there. And if we, for example, were just poking and we made someone low, then we can get more aggressive. Like we're poking and we made that person low, well, now we can get more aggressive to finish them off and then back out, right? That sort of thing, whereas we constantly were just at 0 or 100. I'd like to see us more so sitting at having an aggression scaling, right? So if you have a scale of aggression, right, 50% is your neutral, right? 50% is where you should be most of the time when you're coming into a fight. And then you scale up with resources and with advantages and when you see opportunities, and you scale downwards when you have a lack of opportunity, when you don't have resources, and when you are down advantages such as no new teammates, right? So that's how the scaling works. At 100% you have super aggressive, at 0% you have super passive, right? Too often are we really, really low when we shouldn't be, or really, really high when we shouldn't be, right? Whereas I'd like to see us more so in the middle, more often, and then adjusting accordingly, right? So, for example, let's say that we, you know, kills would go into this, right? So your team is up one person, now you're going from 50 to 60. 2 people, up to 70, right? 3 people up to, you know, up to 80 and so forth, right? Exact opposite way too. Right? Let's say that you don't have blinks or recall. Well, now you're, you know, you don't have ability, so you can't go in aggressively. So because of a lack of resources, now you're gonna scale down to like a 30% aggression because you can't go in and do things, right? So that's just how aggression scaling works, and we're not really scaling appropriately. Let's also talk about those zeros, because we had too many times where we were kind of just sitting around being too passive, and then that gets into actions per minute. So actions per minute is just making sure we're doing things. Also, you can look to go ahead and hop into a queue since you do have longer queue times and whatnot.
Yeah, I believe it's about 5 minutes.
Actually, because usually I take the last 10 minutes to go over a review of the session and then do the main points and wrap up the session from there. You might not have time for a whole queue and to even actually have a game here. So, do you mind like hopping into a quick play game instead?
No, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, so just hop into a quick play queue while we talk about this. So, actions per minute is essentially doing as much with our time as possible, right? Being efficient with our time, right? So if you were to compare, for example, compare a Grandmaster player to a Bronze player, right? A Grandmaster player with mistakes included is going to be efficient with pretty much every single second of their time, right? Whereas a Bronze player might be, might come into the fight and go pew pew shoot shoot and then pause randomly for 10 seconds and then go, yeah, I'm in the fight, pew pew shoot shoot, and then get distracted by the pretty scenery, right? And then there's just a lot less efficiency involved, right? So with ARP time, there are a lot of times where we just kind of sat around where I'm going, okay, why are we sitting around instead of just shooting at them, right? Like, why are we, this is the time in which we should be poking, getting ult charge, getting, you know, looking for an opportunity, doing damage, right? Being a distraction, but instead we just kind of sit there, right? And, you know, that I'd like to see us poking more often, doing more things, and then that kind of gets more into the being more at the 50% more often than just being at 0 100, because we would just sit around, and then we'd all of a sudden go 100. Whereas I'd like to see us, instead of just sitting around being at 0 all the time, I'd like to see us at 50% unless we're trying to be unless we see an opportunity to be at 100, right? So does that all make sense?
I got a game by the way.
Yep.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
All right, so
I think my aggression is sometimes too low, but most of the times it's too high. Like it's all in.
Yep. By the way, you're not streaming, and I also could just watch you in game here if I friend you real quick, but I don't have your BattleNet.
I can give it to you if you want.
Yeah,
that helps. Let's see. I'll type it because it's messed up.
Yep. Is there supposed to be space there? I just sent it.
No, I don't think there is supposed to be.
Alright, I just sent it again then.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, I am spectating.
Traveling to Hanamura.
Okay, so now that I'm watching in a moment here, and I might just be talking a bit more than I was previously while you're playing, just because we've gone over a lot of the main points. So just giving you reminders of like, okay, make sure we're not doing this, doing that, sort of thing.
Sounds good.
Okay. At the moment, our objective is probably, I would say, is just poke. Right now we're down some people, so we're just poking. But our objective at the moment would be to probably get in and go on the right side, so like the right room. Okay, so now we're down some teammates again. So we just, you know, just be grouping up. We don't want to be going in when we don't have teammates available. Though if we wanted to, we could maybe just be poking a little bit. Just be very safe about it. Okay. Probably get in, take some space off of that. Yep.
Oh, that was a mistake.
Okay, make sure we're grabbing health back. Yep. Alright. So at the moment we have pulse pumps, so that's what we're kind of looking for at the moment. Very nice.
Too far away again.
Yep, too far away, as well as the fact that like Diva was staring at us and almost ate it too. Oh, 1 HP. That would be a good situation to have gone for a blink melee. So that's very similar to blink pulse bomb, except for you're blinking it with a melee. So that's very helpful, especially like when you don't have ammo left, right, to finish off that kill.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and then did you join halfway through the game?
Well, it did already start, but it wasn't halfway through.
Hmm.
No, I got booped.
I'm on the objective.
All right. Do you mind sharing what is your sensitivity and DPI at?
My DPI is 800, my sensitivity is 4.0.
Okay, so that's not very low. It does seem as though we're over adjusting off of people. Like we're not staying on people, but we're going like left to right, which I was thinking maybe that might be related to a high sensitivity. But and beside if it's not, then maybe that's not the case. You do have a large mouse pad, yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, okay. So then I'd probably say it's just making sure with our mechanics that we're like I do think we have really good crosshair placement. That's really good. I would imagine that comes from CS:GO and Valorant, and I'd imagine you're familiar with that term from CS:GO and Valorant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you do have good crosshair placement, and you're aiming at heads all the time. It's more so that just like we keep adjusting too far to the left or the right instead of staying on top of the person. So in that case, keep on practicing at it, think about it, make sure we're putting effort into how we're aiming. And then besides that, that was a very short game. I didn't actually have a lot of time, so you can just go ahead and hop into another queue here.
Oh, okay. I even got the priority requeue because the game was so short.
Yep. All right, let me see. Was there anything else I was going to talk about? Let me know when you get into a game. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I was going to talk about when you got a game. Thinking. Yeah, there's a couple times where we sit outside of our effective range, so just making sure that we're making efforts to get into our effective range and being at that, like, 15 to 10 meters, preferably.
Down for the count.
Thinking. Yeah, I think those are the main
One of the things I learned from a YouTube video, I'm not sure, I believe it was from Dante, the Overwatch League player, who made a tracer video, which basically, well, it gave a lot of tips, of course, but one of the things I really remembered is when you're actually behind someone, you don't want to start shooting until you're like really close. Like you can almost melee them. If you start shooting at that point, you can one-clip people so easily.
Yep.
So that's what I tried to do against this last game.
Yeah, and that ended up working out. It's the same thing you did with the Pulse Bomb 2 on the Hanzo, and you did on the Soldier in the last game. So I think that definitely was a good thing that we did.
I just often struggle against soldiers. I'm not sure if it's somewhat of encounter to a tracer, but it feels like that to me.
Yeah, so typically he isn't. He's more, I'd probably say they're more even-ish, like in terms of like how they play against each other. It's more so like try to avoid him when he's health packing if you can, right? Just try to bait it out and then ignore him. And then besides that, you just have to outduel him, right? Dodge out his helix. If you can basically waste both of his abilities, you win that duel, essentially, right? Which you can dodge out his helix through blinks, and then you can make him waste his health pack, or you can wait until after he's used his health pack to engage him. Right, there are multiple options.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, just a health pack is well, obviously pretty annoying, but also the helix plus melee, which can kill you, is also I don't know, quite rough.
In which case, the way you do get out of that is you stay outside of his melee range. Which you want to do on characters that have an advantage at that close range, right? Because it's gonna be very, very easy for him to land that helix if you're like right on top of him. Whereas you don't need to be at that close range on him. And then on top of that, you can stay a little bit further away. You can use blinks to dodge it, recall to dodge it. You can look to engage when he's lower out of position, like we discussed, and look for opportunities to go on him. And then on top of that, you also just have baiting out his health pack so that his health pack's not just healing him up the entire time you're trying to shoot at him.
I think I do try to take opportunities when I see people low from like my DPS or someone else, but I don't really often make opportunities for myself because of the 0 and 100 playstyle.
Yep. Because the idea behind the making opportunities for yourself is that you're poking to get someone low and then going up in aggression, right? Whereas if we're just going up immediately to 100%, well, now a lot of the times I noticed like we would go in and get really, really aggressive when they still had, when they still had 6 teammates together, when they still had resources, no one had used abilities yet, when they still had, whereas if we go in we time it better for when we're going in and getting aggressive when the fight's actually happening, where people are distracted and they're not all looking at you, when they've already used abilities and they're all lower health, right? That's the time in which we want to be engaging, because then at that point they're not going to be able to just kill us nearly as easily.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hold on, let me, else I'll forget. Go to my career profile and take a picture of the screenshot of the rank.
Yeah. I think you'd already did. Oh, you said you did from an older season. Okay. I was about to say.
That's from older one.
Mhm.
So I got one from now, which is 2056.
Yep, so right now we're just waiting for you to get into a game, and then we, depending on the game length, we might end up leaving it, but I don't think we will. Maybe. We'll see.
And let's just do my favorite thing while we're waiting. Some Doom parkour.
Unfortunately, I am not able to view that from spectate. Oh, maybe actually I can, I guess. Oh, interesting. I thought I wasn't able to spectate while people were in queue. Maybe that's something they changed. Did it not register?
I think so. Okay, it did. Wait. That's a different one.
I'm not your savior. Rising Fist, did you bring me a present?
I don't know where I was supposed to land.
You can see it through the wall there. Yeah.
Ah.
So how's the FPS looking?
140, 150.
Nice. So I mean,
Much better.
Definitely doing a lot better than, you know, twice as good.
Yeah. Hey, there we go. Game found.
Alright, nice. Okay, I'm spectating.
Traveling to Havana.
Anna, how can this be? I thought you were dead.
I'm sorry, Reinhardt. After everything that happened...
Alright, so objective here would probably be to get, you know, obviously we're trying to get off angles, so we want to come in at like the side, so probably taking either left side or wrapping around far to the right. Probably say left side would be good, and then if we need to, we can blink across and just go up to their high ground behind them as an option. So again, playstyle ideas, just we're poking, looking, waiting for opportunities, trying to do some damage on our own.
Keep the escort the payload.
Yeah, sounds like they're all on the high ground, right? So we probably want to go up and get below them, behind them. Yep, that's that sort of thing.
Get into position.
No.
Only low if they're low enough for the melee to finish. Only melee if they're low enough for the melee to finish them off, right? We don't want to have to go for like 3. It's better just reload at that point.
Burning them down. Enemy contact.
Oh. Now that was a situation where maybe we could have meleeed her a second time.
Yeah.
will restore you.
No, like there again, watch the blink and the recall is just a bad habit, and then this is gonna end up wasting a blink.
Time's up.
Ah, shit. Just too far.
Yep. On top of that, be careful about that because we didn't have a recall to actually get out with. Which should have meant that we just have one single blink to get away with. Oh. Right, so keep an eye on your deaths because deaths a lot of times are going to be preventable and we can fix them. So like there, for example, right, I think something that could cause a death is a mismanagement of abilities. So if we're dying when we have 2 blinks and a recall, it means that we probably shouldn't have died because we could have just used abilities, right? So in that instance, just making sure we're using our abilities keeps us alive.
Right routine activated.
Okay, so right now we're down a bunch of teammates, so we should be looking to scale down our aggression, go down real low if we don't have any teammates with us. Probably at like a 0 at the moment or a 10, so we really shouldn't even be shooting because then we just expose our position and let them kill us. So once our team comes back in, then we can start to poke again. There, I probably blink in to get closer before I start shooting at her, right? Because again, we just want to respect our distance. So sometimes we end up shooting from too far away.
You got what's coming to ya.
Experience tranquility.
No.
Pay attention to our health bar, because again, we were meleeing her when she wasn't low. Usually melee is going to be the finisher, right? You use it as the finishing blow when they're like 30 HP or lower, right?
Okay, that was lucky.
Watch using your pulse. So I think we're actually going to have to talk about that thing. So let's discuss that. Why don't you just go ahead and leave this game? Because we're going to get into the other things here, and then we're also going to talk about one more thing before we get into the wrap-up end stuff. So I'm streaming if you want to take a look, and then basically let's just talk about how to tell whether or not you have won or lost a fight, right? So how to tell whether or not you have won or lost a fight comes down mainly to watching kill feed, and this pairs hand in hand with aggression scaling, right? So when you are up 1 to 2 people, that is an advantage, right? When you have an advantage, you can get more aggressive because you have less people to shoot at you, to tank, to heal, right? And then therefore you'd up your aggression, right? When you are up 2 to 3 people, that is where you've pretty much won the fight, right? So for example, in that last fight there, we were up it was like a 6v2, right? So in that instance, we have very, very handily won the fight. It's already won. At that point, you want to get super aggressive to go finish off the kill, so your aggression would be very, very high, up to like an 80, 90, 100 type of area. And then on top of that, you don't want to use ults in a one fight, because then that's just overkill. What did your ultimate accomplish when you could just save it and use it in the next fight? So there in that last fight, we ended up using a pulse bomb when it was a 6v2, right? Which means that we could have just used it, waited, and used it for the next fight, and we would have gotten a lot more value out of it. Right? This also goes the exact opposite way. When we are down 1 to 2 people, that is a disadvantage. We're going to downscale our aggression. And then when we're down 2 to 3 people, that is a lost fight where we are going to look to go really, really far down. So we're going to go to like a 0 to 10, right? Where we look to get out if possible, or you let them kill you. And then you also, again, in a lost fight, don't use ultimates, right? So that all makes sense?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So let's hop in. Now we're going to do the main points, the review, and wrap it up from there. So ability usage, honestly, pretty solid. Though a couple things wrong with it. Like, you know, we would like do a blink and then recall immediately, and then that would just waste the blink. Sometimes we wouldn't blink. So for example, like when Hog hooked at us, we had 2 blinks, and we just instead were just kind of crouch spamming when we could have blinked to the side to dodge it, and then he just ended up missing it. But if this was that was an example of like, just because a mistake isn't punished doesn't mean it's not a mistake. At a higher rank, they would land that hook, and then therefore you would be dead, right? Whereas if we blink, then we can dodge away from the hook, but we didn't end up blinking. Instead, we just kind of crouch spammed, which isn't terrible if you don't have blinks, but if we have blinks, there's no reason not to blink, right?
Yeah.
So making sure we're using blinks to dodge out abilities, making sure we're not dying when we still have a bunch of abilities left, make sure we're looking to close the distance as well. We understand that we're a close range character, but look to prioritize getting within that distance, all right? Because look at the fall off, and you have fall off and spread, so you do a lot less damage at a range. So from here, right, we can do this, right? We back up. We're still able to kill him pretty well from here, right? Still not able to do that. Back up to 20 meters, right? Now from here, we have to take 3 clips to finish off somebody, right? Back up to here, we're doing pretty much absolutely nothing, right?
Yeah, it's like 6 clips.
Yeah. So we would end up like kind of sitting at these distances sometimes without pushing forwards. Like there's an example like on a Moira where we just kind of sat here and shot at the Moira when I was like, okay, well, why don't we blink in and then shoot at the Moira and then like we call out or blink out if we want to, because we can blink in, shoot, and then blink out, right, or something of that sort, right, and then just also actively looking to put ourselves closer, right. But in any case,
that was me trying not to go full 100 aggression.
yep. Which, you know, it's you can still be playing pretty passive, doing that. Like it's more so like if we're keeping this distance, like full 100 aggression would be like if we're going in with the intent to stay in, right? Or we're going in and we're using a bunch of abilities and we're going in like right next to them. But like if we're just like blinking in like a little bit, like we're just like going up to here and then we're blinking out, all we've done is wasted 2 abilities and then we're out, right? It's not full aggression where we're using everything, and we're also not in a ton of danger. We're still in good positioning, so it's not too in danger there. But that got onto positioning a little bit there. But in any case, ability usage, just a few wasted abilities, and then besides that, not much else. So overall, I'd probably say like a low to medium priority for you to work on. A bit ultimate usage, I'd probably say a lot more work needed, as we probably only landed them like
once or
probably
twice.
yeah, probably say a third of the time we actually threw them, right? So we want to make sure we're getting up that rate much higher to where we're hitting a lot more pulses, make sure we're actually close to people, we're not trying to chuck them in. That was why we missed most of them. So learn the blink range so we can get up right next to people, but then also just walking closer, make sure we're on top of them so when we pulse, right? And then put an effort into how you're pulsing. Overall, that went up to like a medium priority. Also, don't ult in won or lost fights. That was the other thing, right? And don't ult when the fight hasn't begun yet. That's another thing, right? You ult anytime a fight is happening and it has not been won or lost yet, right? So there's sometimes where we ult, there's once where we ulted when the fight hasn't begun, and then once where we ulted when the fight was already won, right? And
you mean the one on the Hanzo? The one on the bridge on the Hanzo?
That one was more so fine because the fight I'd actually been on that one. I'm talking about the one that was like before that, when we went in and we died while trying to ult and we missed it. We shot from the high ground on them. That one we did like when neither team is like even next to each other, right? The fight has begun pretty much. Usually the best indicator of that is like when teams are next to each other. So like if a team, you know, is right, there's a difference between like enemy team here, our team here, the fight's begun. If the enemy team's back here and our team's here, the fight has not begun, right? So a lot of times the distances are indicating of that. So in any case, moving on. Mechanics, just general mechanics of practicing tracking, make sure we're not going like, you know, I'd probably say most of the time we were good on the crosshair placement, but we'd just end up doing this where we like went side to side too much. So just make sure tracking, staying on them, practice and try hard free for all, practice just by practicing, and then top that, actions per minute, make sure we're not sitting around not doing anything, but we're actually going in and doing things, right? Not wasting our time. And then overall, I'd probably say that one was like a medium priority as well. Right, moving on. Positioning, making sure that we are using cover. Good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover. Making sure we're taking high grounds, as high grounds are really good positioning with a lot of advantages, and rotating to the best positioning possible in between fights. Making sure we're acknowledging the difference between off angles and flanks, and going for off angles as often as possible. Don't go for flanks in the middle of fights, and go for them in between fights, and then watch your danger level while on flanks, right? Make sure we're actively putting ourselves within our 10 meters, whereas sometimes like we wouldn't really actively do that. We just kind of sit at our range, right? And then that is pretty much it. Probably say that one overall goes to a medium-high priority for you to work on. And moving on to awareness. Awareness is paying attention to what's going on around you. So probably say we are good on all of our HUD, paying attention to where is the enemy team at, where is our team at, right? Make sure we're not going in when we don't have our teammates with us. Paying attention to the flow of the fight, so what's happening in kill feed, what's, you know, who's up, who's down, where are the advantage or disadvantage, paying attention to our resources and when we have them and when we don't, right? Just all that stuff. Make sure we're looking around us, keeping up good audio awareness. There were sometimes, like for example, like where there's a Zarya who got trapped and we just ignored it, or we didn't see it, or there's a grab like right below us and we didn't shoot into it. Like, prioritize the people who can't move, right? If there's somebody, right? If these two guys are on a grab and this is a tracer blinking around, focus the people on a grab, not the tracers blinking around, right? That sort of thing. And then aggression scaling, scale your aggression up and down as you understand more so like what's happening in the fight, and then making sure we're not at 0 to 100, but we're more so sitting at 50 and then adjusting up and down as we go along, right? And then that kind of ties in as well. That aggression ties into just a play style of play as an opportunist, play passive and go for poke damage unless you have a opportunity such as a pulse, such as you making someone low, such as someone being low, or someone being out of position. And then overall that all wraps up into awareness / aggression, right? That one as well goes to a medium high priority. So overall, let's come up with the list here of things that need to be worked on. I would probably say that the biggest thing that needs to be worked on is the number 1 is going to be your awareness / aggression. Number 2 is going to be positioning. Number 3 is going to be your ultimate usage. Number 4 is going to be mechanics, and then number 5 is going to be ability usage. Right? Any questions about anything we've gone over? Just anything else in the game?
No, not really.
Where were we?
All right. So let me stop the recording.